Never marry a man who has these 5 habits. In this video, you will discover what to look out for before you commit to a man so you don't get left in the dumps and wondering, how in the world did I get here? How did I get into this abusive relationship or this codependent relationship, dysfunctional relationship? So I'll help you to avoid that today. And of course, I'm Antia, founder and creator of the Magnetize Your Man method. And this is the channel where we magnetize your man so that the man that you want desires and of course pursues you forever. And of course, if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe and you hit that bell below as well for more juicy videos coming your way. So let's go ahead and dive right into those 5 habits you should be looking out for before you commit. Number 5 is he a dreamer or is he a builder? And I talked about this in one other video and I got so much feedback and so many breakthroughs because a lot of men, they actually love to be a certain type of man, right? They love to be your hero. They love to be, to be the caretaker. However, there is no follow through, right? So there is this promise, let's do this together and all the things, but there's not really actions. So I call this the dreamer, right? So those are like the people like to write or you know what I mean? Like they're just like dreamers, right? They're like more like philosophers. But when it comes to actually practical grounding, not so much, right? Versus if you look at a builder, they just take action, right? So when I look at my husband, he's a total builder and he just takes action. When something needs to get done, it needs to get done. If we need to move, he's going to move. If we need to buy a car, we're going to buy a car. It's not like we're talking about it forever and ever and ever and ever, because what happens is when you're with a dreamer, you are the one who has to take the action, right? Because all this beautiful vision is being built, but then there's no follow through on that. So that leaves you with a lot of disappointment. And guess what? Because you don't want to feel all of that disappointment, you just take it on yourself, And of course, I would never recommend marrying a guy like this because you are going to resent the man. You're going to become really upset, really unhappy, right? And you're probably going to become passive aggressive because you try to get your needs met and you can't, right? And so this is just not going to go well. You will have to get into the masculine. So instead, make sure you end up with a builder, an action taker. Number 4 is he talks badly about his exes, right? And this is really interesting because, what I always say, well, if he talks badly about his exes, how do you know that he couldn't be talking badly about you? And what's interesting here is that he actually fails to sort of acknowledge that he chose this kind of woman. You know what I mean? There's kind of a common denominator, right? You attract who you're being. So what does that say about you? But in general, kind of talking behind people's back and just projecting and blaming versus taking responsibility, not a great trait to have, because that probably means that he's going to do the same once you are married, right? He's going to be talking badly about you to his friends, for example. Okay, so just make sure that there's a lot of information about the exes that I don't really want to know, and or that doesn't really feel good, right? We women are really intuitive. We're like, no, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel supportive. This doesn't feel loving, right? So make sure he doesn't talk badly about his exes. And of course, if you like my content, go ahead and subscribe for more juicy future videos. So number 3 is what I call the grumpy grandpa syndrome. And this is the kind of man who has emotional mood swings. And, look, we all have certain emotions inside of ourselves. I talk about this all the time, right? We have anger, we have sadness, we have all those emotions. But with this particular man, he has no emotional intelligence right? He cannot control his emotions. He cannot channel his emotions. And he's just going from super high to super low, right? At a drop of a head. And that doesn't make you feel safe because you now feel like, oh my gosh, how can I predict this? That this doesn't happen again, right? Because that's, of course, like stresses you out. Because what happens is if he has a lot of mood swings, for one, it's going to be draining for you over time. But also, number two is that you'll be like, I have to be the masculine. I have to be the one that holds it together because my man is like swinging up and down like a monkey on a tree, and I have to be like, somebody has to stay grounded, right? Like somebody has to stay stable. And it, of course, then limits you to increase your own emotional capacity. So make sure you have someone who's really grounded and who also takes responsibility for his emotions as well, versus being reactive all the time. Number two, he is sarcastic. So sarcasm actually says a lot, right? There can't be like a condescension towards it, but at the very minimum, it's an emotional unavailability. So when somebody is sarcastic, then somebody is kind of like has already, this is how life is, right? Like, kind of it is what it is. It's not much I can do about it. And of course, that's not going to be helpful at all, right? Like, oh my gosh, no. It's like really thinking about like, wow, like this guy is not opening his heart. When somebody is sarcastic, their heart is closed. So that's going to be really hard for you to open your heart and to trust him and to feel safe emotionally if he's like sarcastic all the time, right? Or if he's jaded all the time. So there's something to look out for, because otherwise you're going to feel there's going to be emotional disconnect more and more. That's going to happen in your relationship, and it's going to impact your intimacy, right? Or your lack of intimacy thereof. So definitely something to keep in mind. And if you want to learn more about how to keep an eye on all of that, join our free Facebook group, mymfbgroup.com. And number one is he is selfish. Now, there's a healthy level of selfishness, and then there's a really unhealthy level of selfishness. And so when you go on a date and he turns everything towards him, it's always about him, right? You share a story about your work. And he's like, oh, that reminds me of a story of my work. Or you share a story about vacation. And he's like, oh, that's so funny that you mentioned this. That reminds me of my last vacation. Or he doesn't even let you talk at all. He doesn't ask you any questions, right? He's just selfish, like, and especially if it carries through, if you see like, well, I wanted to go to the bar last night, so I did. So there is literally no consideration for you as well, for your feelings, for your needs. It's kind of like, just too bad. I'm doing what I'm doing. That's also going to be something you want to look out for, because that's going to be something that's going to leave you like unhappy, like long term, for sure, because like he's not going to invest anything into you, and it's going to leave you drained, and it's going to re-trigger your fear of abandonment. Of course, it's totally going to trigger your sense of any insecurity that you may have developed in your childhood. It's massively going to magnify that versus heal that. So one thing to watch out for. Now, if you want to learn more, where are you standing on all of that, take our free quiz to attract the right man for you at mymquiz.com. And you haven't done so already, watch next. When a man deeply loves you, he'll start saying these 5 things. Ladies, this is it for today. Much love to you, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.